Welcome to part 3 of an introduction to JT6m. We've now reached section 5, and in this section we're going to explore setting the levels in WSJT. Failure to do this correctly could mean that all your work previously will have been in vain. Another important thing to remember is that unlike HF practices, WSJT digital modes are run on upper sideband. If your radio has a digi mode or a packet mode, please ensure that it is set to upper sideband for WSJT use. If your radio has a RTTY mode, please do not use this, as the RTTY mode normally invokes very narrow filters for both receive and possibly transmit, neither of which is suitable for WSJT use. Finally, if your radio has any DSP fitted, please turn it off. WSJT, as the program on your PC, contains fairly advanced DSP algorithms within the programming. Any DSP within your radio will in fact reduce the effectiveness of WSJT, so always best to operate with DSP turned off. Provided the previous sequences have been completed successfully, please go to the monitor button in WSJT and select it. It will turn green, and hopefully WSJT will be taking audio from your radio and receiving. When it does so, you will see some activity appear on Spec JT above. Sometimes you will not always see moving activity until it reaches the end of a period, like so. Now Spec JT is scrolling and displaying spectral analysis of the audio that is coming in to WSJT from your radio. The level here is too high. Let me demonstrate. If we take a look down in the bottom right corner of Spec JT, there is a level meter, and in this instance it is displaying 5 dB. For WSJT to be calibrated correctly, this level needs to be set to 0 dB. That is WSJT's normal working environment. In order to do this, you will either need to go to your operating system's mixer, audio mixer, or should you be operating a system like myself where you have an audio interface with external controls, then you will need to make the appropriate changes. So in my particular instance, we will go here. We need to turn in 1 down slightly, and as I turn in 1 down, you will see the levels beginning to change, and we need to adjust this carefully until such time as the level approaches 0 dB. Provided you do not have a particularly noisy environment in which the noise floor constantly and frequently fluctuates, hopefully WSJT will sit happily at 0 dB. It is during the school half-term, and the noise floor is fluctuating quite considerably as there is a lot of electrical activity in the vicinity to me. But as you can see here now, the level has settled at 0 dB, and this is the normal operating environment for WSJT. That concludes setting the levels for RX. Now it's time to turn our attentions to the transmit audio levels. This is very critical also, as too low an output and you could be doing yourself out of a reasonable output power. Too high an output and you could be generating some distortion. For this, I recommend that should you have the facility, please adjust the meter on your radio to ALC. That will help you determine whether the output from the PC to your radio is acceptable or too high. The normal operating condition for this is to have the ALC meter reduced, turn the output from WSJT down until such time as you would just reach the point where there is no deflection of ALC. I will demonstrate. In my example, the level from the PC to the radio is adjusted by a control on my audio interface. Please now take your radio to an unoccupied frequency, or better still, into a dummy load. Select the output power that you intend to be using. So should that be 50 watts, 100 watts, or possibly 400 watts, depending upon your particular setup. It's very important that you set the ALC up for the desired output power, as if you adjust the ALC and then change your mind and run a different output power, it is entirely possible that you may then be running too low or too high an audio output, and could possibly risk running distortion if your audio levels into your radio are too high. I'm now running into a dummy load, and I go to WSJT and I select TX1. It can be any of these messages. It's really quite immaterial. It is better for there to be a combination of letters in the box that you are going to transmit with. This assumes that your PTT switching, either by Vox or by COM port, is fully functional. Remember that WSJT operates on 30-second intervals. So for example, if I were to press the message button TX1 here, when the WSJT clock was reading 28 seconds, WSJT would only transmit for 2 seconds before it automatically cuts out. JT6m is designed to operate on 30-second intervals, and it will therefore cut out at the 30-second interval no matter which period you're transmitting in, first or second. Alternatively, of course, you could select either TX first, or you can leave this box unchecked and press the auto button, in which case the radio will then transmit for 30 seconds once a minute. So in this instance I'm going to press TX1. The radio has now gone into transmit. As can be seen, the PTT light is on, and as you will see, my meter, the ALC, has some deflection. This indicates that the level from WSJT is excessive. I now adjust my device down to the point just below where there is no deflection from ALC. This will now give you the maximum output available, but also the cleanest signal possible under these conditions. I always recommend operating with zero deflection on ALC, as this will give you the best possible quality of transmission. That concludes setting levels for TX. Well, that brings us to the end of section 5, and also to the end of part 3. In part 4 of an introduction to JT6m, we're going to take a look at the art of decoding. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye.